Welcome to the podcast where we break down big ideas into practical steps for a richer, more meaningful life. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a concept that just might change the way you think about building wealth forever. You've probably heard that discipline matters, and you might even believe that time is money. But what if the real secret is a formula, one that combines discipline, time, and leverage into a powerful engine for financial growth? Inspired by the wisdom of Rohn, we're going beyond cliches and showing you how these three ingredients, when mixed together, can create results bigger and longer lasting than you ever imagined. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your finances to the next level, this episode will give you a simple, actionable framework you can use right away. Let's get started on the wealth formula: discipline plus time plus leverage. Let's be honest for a second. When you hear words like wealth or financial independence, what pops into your mind? For a lot of people, the first feelings are overwhelm and confusion. Maybe it feels like there's some secret code you never learned, or like wealth is a club for people with special insider knowledge. Maybe you picture spreadsheets, stock charts, or people in fancy suits talking jargon you don't understand. Or maybe you just think, well, that's nice for them, but it's not really for someone like me. And you know what? You are not alone in feeling that way. Most of us grow up without much real education about money. We might hear vague advice, save for a rainy day or don't spend more than you earn, but no one really sits us down and shows us how to build wealth from the ground up. It's almost as if there's this invisible wall between regular folks and wealthy people. And that wall is mostly built out of myths. So, before we go any further, let's just name a few of those myths out loud. First, there's the myth that you need to be born into money or luck your way into wealth. You know, the idea that unless you win the lottery or inherit a fortune, you're destined to just get by. Another big myth is that only people with a certain level of intelligence, education, or connections can become wealthy. It's this sneaky belief that you need an MBA, a PhD in finance, or some kind of magical business IQ to make it. And then, of course, there's the myth that you have to work yourself to the bone, sacrificing your health, your time, your relationships, to maybe, just maybe, get ahead. Let's pause here. If you've ever found yourself thinking any of those things, I want you to know, they're just not true. They feel real because society repeats them over and over, but they're not facts. Plenty of wealthy people didn't start rich, and they weren't necessarily the smartest or luckiest in the room. What they did have was a different approach to building wealth, one that, honestly, isn't all that complicated. So, if wealth isn't about luck or being a genius or working 80-hour weeks, what is it about? What is the secret code that some people seem to have cracked? Here's the irony: it's not really a secret at all. It's a formula. And it's simple enough that once you see it, you can't unsee it. But before we get there, I want you to think about something. Why do you think so many people, hardworking, decent people, spend their lives just getting by? Why is it that you can work a steady job for decades, be careful with your money, and still feel like true wealth is just out of reach? I want you to imagine for a moment that money isn't just about math or how much you make. What if there's something bigger at play? Something about the way we think, the tiny actions we take every day, and the systems we plug ourselves into? Here's a story that might help paint the picture. Picture two friends, Sam and Alex. They start out in the same neighborhood, with similar family backgrounds, and similar jobs. Neither of them inherits anything or wins the lottery. But 20 years later, Sam is comfortably wealthy, enjoying life, helping his family, maybe even traveling or supporting causes he cares about. Alex, meanwhile, is still working just as hard, maybe even harder, but struggling to make ends meet. What happened? It's not that Sam is smarter. It's not that Sam never made mistakes. The real difference is that Sam started following a different pattern, a simple set of choices repeated over time that Alex just didn't know about. That's what we're here to talk about. Not a get-rich-quick trick or a magic app, but the actual mechanics of how wealth is built, step by small step. And more importantly, how you can do the exact same thing, starting today, no matter where you begin. Now, let's be real. There are a lot of experts out there who make wealth building seem complicated on purpose. It keeps you dependent on their advice, their programs, their fancy schemes. But most of wealth building comes down to three forces. Not 50. Not 100. 3. And when you understand them, you'll see that it's not about outsmarting the system, it's about learning to work with it. And you don't need anyone's permission, or a lottery ticket, or a degree from a fancy school. You just need a little curiosity, a bit of patience, and the willingness to start. So, let's break down the myth of complicated wealth. Let's imagine wealth as a recipe. If you've ever cooked something, you know that a great meal doesn't need 100 ingredients. Sometimes, it's the simple recipes, the ones with a few quality ingredients combined in the right way, that taste the best. Building wealth is a lot like that. It isn't about having every possible advantage or knowing every trick in the book. It's about combining three simple ingredients, over and over, until the results start to multiply. And just like in cooking, the magic isn't in any one ingredient, it's in how they come together. Here's the formula, one that stood the test of time, and one you can start using right away. Wealth equals discipline, times time, times leverage. Let me say that again, because it's simple but powerful. Wealth equals discipline, times time, times leverage. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That sounds almost too easy. But let's remember, simple doesn't mean effortless. Water and flour can become bread, but you still have to knead the dough and let it rise. But the beauty of this formula is that anyone can use it, in any situation, starting from wherever you are. No secret club. No hidden rules. Just these three forces working for you. Let's take a moment to look at each piece. First, discipline. Most people hear that word and immediately think about struggle or self-denial. But discipline, in this context, is really about small, consistent habits. It's about showing up for yourself with tiny actions, day in and day out, even when you don't feel like it. It's not about giving up everything that makes life enjoyable. It's about choosing, on purpose, the habits that move you a little closer to your goals. Next, there's time. And this is where almost everyone underestimates the process. We live in a world that's obsessed with quick results. But almost all meaningful wealth is built slowly, beneath the surface, invisible to others for years before it suddenly looks like overnight success. Time is like the heat that bakes the bread. Without it, nothing rises. And third, leverage. This is where things get interesting. Leverage is about using tools, systems, people, or technology to multiply your results. It's the difference between carrying buckets of water one at a time and building a pipeline that brings water right to your door. With the right leverage, your efforts go further. You start seeing results that are bigger than what you could accomplish alone. So, to recap, the formula is simple. Discipline, multiplied by time, multiplied by leverage. That's it. But don't let its simplicity fool you. Simple things, repeated, create extraordinary results. And this isn't just an idea, it's how real people, from all backgrounds, have built lasting wealth. But maybe you're still wondering, okay, but what does that actually look like in practice? How do I make those ingredients work for me? And what if I've tried before and it didn't stick? Those are great questions, and totally natural ones to have. Because let's be honest, it's easy to get stuck when you don't see the path. Maybe you've tried saving a little, but it felt too slow to matter. Maybe you've tried investing, but the jargon scared you off, or you worried about making a mistake. Maybe you've looked at successful people and thought, they must know something I don't. But remember, wealth building isn't about having all the answers up front. It's about starting with small, doable steps you can take right now. No matter what your income is, no matter where you live, no matter what your history with money has been, you can start putting the wealth formula to work in your life. And in the next parts of this conversation, we'll walk through exactly how to do that. We'll show you how discipline isn't about punishing yourself, but about building habits that actually stick. We'll see how time, even in tiny doses, acts as your greatest ally, quietly multiplying what you do each day. And we'll get practical about leverage, how the right tools or systems can amplify your results, even if you're starting small. But before we go deeper, I want you to do something. Take a deep breath and let go of the idea that wealth is reserved for someone else. Let go of the myth that you're missing a gene or a secret handshake. We're all in this together, learning as we go, and there's no finish line you have to cross before you're allowed to start. Wealth is a process, not a destination. And it starts with a simple shift in mindset. It's possible for you. Wherever you are, whatever your starting point, the formula belongs to you. If you think about the people you admire, those who've built meaningful wealth, not just for themselves but for their families and communities, you'll notice something. Almost none of them had it all figured out at the start. They made mistakes. They doubted themselves. But they kept moving forward, one small, intentional step at a time. That's the path. And it's available to you, too. So, as we move forward, keep that in mind. Yes, there are obstacles. Yes, it can feel confusing sometimes. And yes, there will be moments when you wonder if it's worth it. But the foundation is simple and solid. Wealth equals discipline, times time, times leverage. In the next section, we'll dig into that first piece, discipline. We'll talk about why it matters, how to build it even when motivation is low, and how tiny daily actions can grow into something extraordinary. But for now, just remember, wealth isn't complicated. It's just misunderstood. And you're already on your way. Let's talk about discipline. But not the kind that's all about grit your teeth willpower or forcing yourself to do things you hate. That's the version most people picture: tough, joyless, almost a punishment. But real discipline, it's so much simpler and much more forgiving. Think of discipline as a system of tiny choices you make each day. Not heroic, dramatic acts, but habits so small you could almost miss them. It's brushing your teeth without thinking. It's putting your keys in the same spot. It's tiny, repeated actions that, over time, shape who you become and what you achieve. Most people don't realize this. They think wealth comes from one big, life-changing decision or a stroke of luck. But really, wealth is the byproduct of hundreds, even thousands, of small, almost invisible actions, stacked one after the other. Let me share a story. Years ago, a friend of mine wanted to get in shape. He bought expensive running shoes, downloaded the latest apps, set massive goals. But he'd go all out for a week, get sore, and then stop for months. He never got anywhere. One day, someone suggested he just put on his running shoes every morning, no requirement to run, just lace them up. It sounded silly, but he did it. After a week, he started walking to the mailbox, then around the block. Months later, he was jogging every morning, all because he built a tiny, almost laughable habit he could stick to. That's how discipline really works. It isn't dramatic. It's not about punishing yourself or powering through some grand 90-day challenge. It's about making the next good choice and letting those choices accumulate. So how does this translate to building wealth? Let's break it down with real, practical examples. Imagine you want to start saving money. The big goal might be to have a 6-month emergency fund or a down payment for a house. But staring at that number, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, can feel overwhelming. Instead, start with something so small it almost feels pointless. Save $5 a day. That's the price of a fancy coffee or a quick lunch. $5 won't change your life today. But if you do that every day for a year, you'll have over $1,800. And more importantly, you've grown the habit of paying yourself first. And here's the real magic. Once you've built that small habit, it becomes easier to do a little more. 5 becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. You start to see your own progress, and it motivates you to keep going. You're not just saving money, you're becoming the kind of person who saves money. The same principle works with investing. You don't need to start with a huge sum. Open an account, automate a tiny contribution, even if it's just a few dollars a week. Set it and forget it. The numbers might look unimpressive at first, but what matters is you're building the muscle. You're teaching yourself to invest, to trust the process, and to keep going when it feels slow. Now, let's talk about another area where discipline shines: learning new skills. You don't need to enroll in a master's program or dedicate entire weekends to self-improvement. Try reading 10 pages of a book each night, or spending 15 minutes listening to a podcast in the morning. Over a month, that adds up to hundreds of pages, hours of new knowledge, maybe a new certification or idea that sparks your next breakthrough. Why does this work so well? Because these small actions sneak past the part of your brain that resists change. They're not threatening. They don't set off alarm bells that make you procrastinate or give up before you've started. And when you string enough of these little wins together, they turn into momentum. Think about it like drops in a bucket. One drop doesn't look like much. But if you keep adding a drop every day, eventually the bucket overflows. The day you see results isn't the day you started, or even the day after. It's the sum of all those invisible, boring, consistent actions compounded over time. Let's look at another example: managing spending. Maybe you've always struggled with sticking to a budget. Instead of tracking every single penny, something most of us abandon after a week, just try writing down your biggest expense each day. That's it. Not the whole list. Just the one thing you spent the most on. After a month, you'll notice patterns. Maybe you're eating out more than you realized. Or you're buying more online than you thought. That single habit can shine a light on where your money actually goes, and from there, you can make a few small tweaks that add up. Or maybe you want to negotiate a higher salary. That's a big leap, and it can feel too intimidating to tackle all at once. But what if, every day, you write down one accomplishment from your work? Or you spend 5 minutes researching what other people in your field earn? Over weeks and months, you build up a record of your wins, you boost your confidence, and you're ready, when the time comes, to make your case. It's not just about asking for more. It's about preparing in small, manageable steps. Here's a secret. People who look like overnight successes are almost always masters of discipline. They've done the little things, day in and day out, for years. The world notices them only when they hit it big, but behind every lucky break are thousands of small, disciplined choices nobody sees. I want you to think about your own routines for a moment. What's one small change you could make today? Not something huge or overwhelming. Something tiny. Something you know you can repeat tomorrow, and the day after that, without fail. It might be checking your bank account for 60 seconds each morning, just to see where you stand. It might be bringing lunch from home once a week, or reviewing your subscriptions once a month. It might even be as simple as reading one article about investing, or tracking your spending for a single category. Each of these actions, by itself, is easy to underestimate. It's tempting to think, is this even making a difference? The answer is yes, if you're consistent. Because over time, these habits don't just change what you do. They change how you think about money, about yourself, and about what's possible. One of my favorite examples is the story of the 1% rule. The idea is, instead of aiming for giant leaps, just try to improve by 1% each day. With money, that could mean saving 1% more of your income, or reducing an expense by 1%. It doesn't sound like much, but if you keep at it, you'll see massive improvement over the months and years. That's the power of compounding, but it starts with discipline, choosing to make that little change, again and again. Now, I can almost hear what you might be thinking, but what about motivation? What about those days when I just don't feel like it? That's the beauty of discipline. When you make your habits small enough, you don't need to be fired up every day. You just need to do the thing, no matter how you feel. It's about showing up, even when you're tired, distracted, or bored. Let's bring in a real-world example. Take Warren Buffett, the world's most famous investor. People are fascinated by his wealth, but if you dig a little deeper, you'll see it's not just about picking good stocks. Buffett's greatest strength is discipline. He reads for hours each day. He sticks to clear rules, even when the crowd is doing something different. He doesn't chase trends or get swayed by hype. It's his steady, almost boring routine that, over decades, has produced almost unbelievable results. Or look at someone starting from scratch. Maybe you're earning a modest income and can only save a little each month. That doesn't mean you're out of the game. In fact, starting small gives you a chance to build the habits that will serve you when your income grows. The hardest dollar to save is usually the first one. After that, it's about repeating the habit, not the amount. Here's another way to think about discipline. It's like planting seeds. You don't see a tree right away. You barely see anything at all for weeks, maybe months. But if you water it a little every day, 10 seconds here, a minute there, the roots start growing underground, out of sight. One day, you look outside and notice a tiny sprout. Months later, there's a sapling. Years later, it's a tree that gives shade and fruit. The magic didn't happen overnight. It was the slow, steady work, done over and over. If you ever feel discouraged by slow progress, remember, you are not failing. You're building the roots. You're doing the work that pays off in ways you can't always see right away. That's how discipline really pays off. It's also important to recognize that discipline is a skill, not a personality trait. Nobody is born naturally disciplined. It's something you practice, like learning to play an instrument or speak a new language. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And if you miss a day, don't beat yourself up. Just start again. The real failure isn't missing a step. It's quitting for good. Let's talk about some practical tips to make discipline easier in your daily life, especially when it comes to money. First, automate whatever you can. That's the easiest discipline hack there is. If you set up an automatic transfer to your savings or investment account, you don't have to rely on willpower. It just happens in the background, whether you remember or not. One less decision to make, one less thing to forget. Second, make your habits visible. Leave your financial goal on a sticky note where you'll see it every day. Put your savings jar on the kitchen counter. Set a reminder on your phone to check your spending, or review your goals at the same time each week. The more you see your habit, the less likely you are to forget or ignore it. Third, track your streak. There's something surprisingly motivating about seeing how many days in a row you've stuck to a habit. You don't want to break the chain. It could be a calendar you mark with an X each day you save $1, or a notebook where you jot down every time you read something new about investing. The streak itself becomes a tiny reward, and it helps your habit stick. Fourth, start so small you can't say no. If saving $20 a week feels impossible, start with $1. If reading a chapter is too much, start with a single page. If logging all your expenses is overwhelming, track just one category. The key is to lower the bar until you can step over it every time. Once you've got momentum, you can always scale up. And finally, celebrate your small wins. Give yourself credit, even for tiny steps. Did you skip a coffee and put that money in your savings? That's a win. Did you spend 5 minutes reviewing your budget? Win. Did you read a single news article about investing or listen to a financial podcast on the commute? Another win. The more you acknowledge these little successes, the more likely you are to keep going. Let's switch gears for a moment and talk about what happens when discipline meets setbacks. Because here's the truth, everyone slips up. Maybe you overspend 1 week, or forget to transfer money to savings, or let your reading habit slide. That's normal. The most disciplined people mess up all the time. What sets them apart is how they respond. Instead of seeing a slip as failure, treat it as feedback. Ask yourself, what made this hard? Was my goal too big? Did I forget to set a reminder? Was I tired or distracted? Use that information to tweak your habit. Make it smaller, easier, or more visible. Remember, the goal isn't perfection. It's progress. Another thing to keep in mind, discipline is contagious. If you start with one area of your life, say, saving a little money each week, you'll often find other areas begin to improve, too. Maybe you start eating a bit healthier. Or you get curious about investing. Or you decide to learn a new skill for work. These habits feed off each other. Small wins in one area give you the confidence and energy to take on others. And here's the final point I want you to remember. Discipline creates freedom. That sounds backwards, right? Most people think discipline is about restriction, limiting yourself, saying no, missing out. But in reality, discipline gives you choices. When you save a little each week, you have money for emergencies or opportunities. When you invest regularly, you open the door to future growth. When you control your spending, you're not trapped by debt or stress. It's not about denying yourself forever. It's about building habits today that make life easier and richer tomorrow. Let's recap this idea, because it's easy to forget. Discipline isn't about suffering. It's about making success automatic. It's about shaping your environment, your routines, and your identity, one small choice at a time. It's also about giving yourself grace when you fall short. Nobody is perfect. The important thing is to keep coming back to the habit, to the process, to your vision for the future. So if you remember just one thing from this, let it be this: don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect day or a lightning bolt of inspiration. Start with a habit so small you can't fail. Stick with it. Celebrate your wins. Adjust when you need to. And trust that, over time, these small actions, these daily choices, will lead to results bigger than you can imagine. Because that's the real power of discipline. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. But it's the quiet force that turns small habits into big results. And it's available to you, right now, no matter where you're starting from. So, what tiny habit will you try today? Whatever it is, know that it matters. With discipline as your foundation, you're already halfway to building the wealth and life you want. Let's keep moving forward, one small step at a time. Now, let's talk about something almost magical, though most people never even notice it. Time. Not the kind you see on your watch, or the kind you feel rushing past during a busy day. I mean the quiet, relentless force that amplifies everything you do, for better or for worse. See, when most of us think about building wealth, we imagine needing to do something huge right away. Like you need a massive windfall, or a perfect stock pick, or some secret shortcut. But what if the real secret isn't about doing more, faster? What if it's about giving your efforts enough time to work their magic? Here's the thing, time is the least flashy ingredient in the wealth formula. It's easy to overlook. You can't see it, touch it, or brag about it. And yet, it's the silent multiplier that makes small efforts add up to big results, if you're patient. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're planting a tree. You put a tiny seed in the ground, barely bigger than a pebble. At first, nothing seems to happen. You water it, you wait, and you maybe even start to wonder if you did something wrong. But every day, beneath the soil, something is happening. Roots are digging in. The seed is cracking open. Growth is happening, even if you can't see it yet. That's what wealth building is like when you give it time. The real magic happens through something called compounding. You've probably heard that word tossed around, especially when people talk about investments. But compounding isn't just a financial term, it's a fundamental law of nature. Here's how it works. When you make a small effort, like saving a little bit, improving a skill, or investing in your health, that effort starts to pay off. But if you keep going, those payoffs don't just stack up. They multiply. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's tiny and unimpressive. But as it rolls, it picks up more snow. And the bigger it gets, the faster it grows. That's compounding in action. Let's get specific. Say you save just $5 a day. Maybe that's skipping a fancy coffee or making lunch at home. It doesn't sound like much, right? But $5 a day, every day, is $1.825 a year. If you do that for 10 years, you've set aside $18.250. But here's where time steps in and bends the rules in your favor. If you invest that money and it earns some interest, those dollars start earning their own dollars. Those little bits of growth get reinvested, so your money starts to work for you, even while you sleep. This isn't just true with money. Maybe you decide to spend 15 minutes a day learning a new skill. At first, it feels a little silly. What can you really learn in 15 minutes? But over a year, that's more than 90 hours. That's enough time to read several books, practice, stumble, try again, and eventually get pretty good. Most people give up long before they see results. That's because time works in the background. It doesn't send you updates or pat you on the back for sticking with it. Instead, it quietly multiplies your efforts, turning small habits into powerful advantages. But here's the catch: compounding only works if you let it. If you dig up the seed every other day to see if it's growing, you'll never get the tree. If you jump from one plan to the next, hoping for faster results, you'll always be starting over from scratch. Patience is key. And I get it, being patient is hard, especially when it feels like everyone else is getting ahead faster. Social media shows us overnight success stories, but what you don't see is the years of quiet effort behind the scenes. Let's take Warren Buffett, for example. He's one of the richest people in the world, and he'll be the first to tell you that his wealth isn't just a result of smart investing, it's mostly thanks to time. In fact, the vast majority of his fortune came after he turned 50. He started investing as a kid, but compounding needed decades to do its thing. So if you're putting in the work, but the results aren't showing up yet, don't quit. You're not doing it wrong. You're just in the early compounding phase. Think about this: the most dramatic results of compounding happen at the end, not the beginning. It's like filling a stadium with water, doubling the amount every minute. For the first half of the time, the stadium is barely filling up. But suddenly, the last few moments, it overflows. That's how most breakthroughs actually happen: slow, 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 and then suddenly, all at once. Let me share a story. A friend of mine started investing $50 a month into a simple fund when he was 22. He wasn't making much money, but he stuck with it, even when it felt pointless. After a year, he barely noticed a difference. 5 years in, it still wasn't much. But after 10 years, he started to see some real growth. By the time he was 40, that little habit, a few bucks every month, had grown into enough money for a life-changing opportunity. The lesson? Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. Give your efforts the gift of time. And this applies way beyond the world of investing. If you're trying to build a business, your first customers might trickle in slowly. Your first products might flop. But each attempt teaches you something. Each year, you learn a little more, tweak your process, build your reputation. 5 years later, people start calling you an overnight success, but you know it wasn't overnight at all. Or maybe you're working on your health. You decide to walk more or eat better. For the first few weeks, the scale doesn't budge. Your energy feels the same. But your body is quietly adapting. Your habits are stacking up. Months go by, and suddenly you wake up feeling lighter, stronger, more confident. So why do so few people let time work for them? Partly, it's because we're wired for instant results. We live in a world of quick fixes and same-day shipping. If we don't see progress right away, we start to question the process. Maybe we get bored or distracted by the next shiny thing. But what if you changed your perspective? What if you started seeing time as your most loyal ally instead of your enemy? Here's a simple mindset shift. Aim for tiny, consistent improvements, and trust that time will multiply them. Instead of going all in for a week and burning out, go small and steady, but never stop. There's an old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. It's never too late to start. And the sooner you start, the more time you give your efforts to multiply. Let's look at another example, learning a language. Suppose you want to speak Spanish. You could try to cram for hours and hope to wake up fluent, but we all know that doesn't work. Instead, what if you practiced for just 5 minutes every day? At first, your progress would seem painfully slow. Maybe you'd only learn a handful of words. But 5 minutes a day adds up to over 30 hours a year, enough to hold a decent conversation. Do that for 3 years, and you'll surprise yourself with how much you know. This is how compounding works with knowledge, relationships, even your reputation. Small, positive actions repeated over and over create a snowball of momentum if you have the patience to let it build. One of the most powerful things about time is that it can work for you or against you. If you consistently invest in good habits, time will multiply your gains. But if you ignore your finances, neglect your health, or stay stuck in old patterns, time doesn't stand still. It quietly multiplies the consequences, too. So the question isn't whether time is working, but whether it's working in your favor. Here's another truth, starting early isn't just about having more years under your belt. It's about taking advantage of the exponential growth that only shows up later. Let's go back to the money example. If you invest $100 a month starting at age 25, and your investments grow at a decent rate, by the time you're 65, you could have over $500,000. But if you wait until you're 35 to start, you'll end up with less than half that amount, even though you're only skipping 10 years. That's the power of time in action. It isn't fair. It rewards the patient and the early starters. But here's the good news, even if you haven't started yet, every day you wait is another day you could have been compounding. Don't let "it's too late" be your excuse. And don't forget, time isn't just about years on a calendar. It's also about how you use your days. If you spend 10 minutes a day learning, 10 minutes a day moving your body, 10 minutes a day reaching out to a friend or potential mentor, that adds up. Over a year, that's more than 180 hours of self-improvement. That's more than a full week spent investing in yourself. When you put it that way, the small things suddenly feel bigger, don't they? I like to think of time as a quiet partner in your wealth journey. It's always there, always moving forward, multiplying whatever you put into it, good or bad. So ask yourself, what am I putting into time, right now? Maybe it's the $5 you could save instead of spending it. Or the 10 pages you could read before bed. Or the thank you message you could send to someone every week. Each of those things seems tiny in the moment. But stack them up, and time turns them into something meaningful. It also pays to remember that consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can go all out for a week, but few people keep showing up for months or years. That's where the real breakthroughs happen, when you let time do the heavy lifting. If you ever doubt that, Spend a moment thinking about the tallest tree you've ever seen. That tree didn't rush. It didn't panic because nothing seemed to be happening. It just grew, a little each day, and trusted the process. You can do the same, no matter where you're starting from. Now, there's a flip side to all this. Sometimes, waiting can feel frustrating. Maybe you've been putting in the work, and you're just not seeing results. Maybe you're feeling stuck, or you're tempted to try something new just for the sake of novelty. That's normal. But remember, most people quit right before the compounding gets interesting. The early days are always the hardest, because the results are invisible. It's only later that everyone else notices and asks how you did it. So, how do you stay patient when time feels so slow? First, celebrate the little wins. Did you save $10 this week? Awesome. Did you show up for your walk, or finish a lesson, or say no to something that used to trip you up? That's progress, even if it's not headline-worthy. Second, track your progress. Sometimes, the numbers don't seem to move much, but seeing a graph, a journal entry, or even a list of days you stuck with it can be a powerful reminder that you're moving forward. Third, remember why you started. Compounding is a long-term game. If you focus only on quick results, you'll lose heart. But if you focus on the bigger picture, the life you're building, you'll find it easier to keep going. And finally, connect with others who are on the same journey. Time feels less lonely when you're sharing it with people who understand the value of patience and steady growth. So as you think about building wealth or any big goal, ask yourself, how can I partner with time? What small action can I take today, and tomorrow, and next week, knowing that time will multiply my efforts? Whether you're just starting out or feeling like you're behind, remember, time isn't running out on you. It's quietly waiting to help you, if you let it. Let's return to the wealth formula for a minute. Discipline times time times leverage. If discipline is the engine that drives progress, and leverage is the fuel that makes it faster, time is the road that stretches out ahead of you, long, sometimes winding, but always moving you closer to your destination if you keep going. Don't underestimate it. Don't rush it. Trust it. Every big result you see in the world, whether it's a thriving business, a healthy relationship, or a robust investment account, started as something small, multiplied patiently by time. So, what will you start today, knowing that time will multiply it for you? Let's give your efforts the runway they deserve. Your future self will thank you, not just for what you did, but for how long you stuck with it. And when the results finally show up, you will realize it wasn't magic at all, it was just time, quietly working its wonders behind the scenes. Now, let's talk about the part of the formula that really changes the game, leverage. If discipline is your engine and time is the long road ahead, then leverage is your turbo boost. Leverage is what turns small efforts into big results. It's the difference between pushing a heavy boulder uphill on your own and suddenly discovering a ramp, or a team of people, or even a machine that does the heavy lifting with you. A lot of people spend years grinding, working incredibly hard, and wonder why their progress still feels slow. Meanwhile, others seem to get ahead with less struggle. Often, the secret is leverage, using tools, systems, or the help of others to multiply the impact of your actions. Let's break down what that can look like, and how you can start to use it, no matter where you are right now. First, think about the word itself, leverage. In the physical world, it's using a simple tool, a lever, to move something heavy, with a lot less effort. In wealth building, it's the exact same idea. You're figuring out how to get more output from the same amount of input. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter and making your efforts count for more. So, what kinds of leverage are out there? Let's start with probably the most familiar form, technology. Think about what technology lets us do today that wasn't possible even a few decades ago. A single person can now reach thousands, or even millions, of people with a post, a video, or an email. You can use scheduling apps to automate your calendar. You can invest with just a few taps on your phone. Technology acts like a multiplier for your ideas and your energy. If you're running a small business, you can set up an online store that's open 24/7, even while you sleep. If you're a writer, you can publish your thoughts and have them read, shared, and discussed around the world. Even something as simple as using spreadsheets to track your finances, or apps that help you budget, is a way of leveraging technology to make a small amount of effort go a long way. Now, let's talk about another powerful form of leverage, teams. No matter how skilled or disciplined you are, there's a limit to how much you can do alone. But when you bring other people into the picture, your reach expands. This doesn't mean you need to have a huge company or hire a big staff. It can be as simple as collaborating with others, sharing responsibilities, or getting advice from people who've done what you want to do. Even in your personal finances, you can leverage the knowledge and experience of mentors, financial advisors, or community groups. If you're building a side project, maybe you start with a friend who has a skill you don't. If you're investing, maybe you join an investment club where you can learn from others' insights and avoid mistakes they've already made. Teams turn your individual strengths into something much bigger. They allow you to focus on what you're best at, while others cover areas where you're less experienced or simply don't have the time. And, honestly, working with others can make the journey a lot more enjoyable. Let's move to a third kind of leverage, systems. Systems are, in a way, the ultimate leverage. They're like invisible helpers that keep things running smoothly, even when your attention is somewhere else. For example, automating your savings each month is a system. Once it's set up, you don't have to think about it again. The money just moves over, quietly building your future while you go about your day. If you run a business, a system might be a checklist for onboarding new clients, templates for your emails, or a marketing schedule that repeats every week. Systems take the things you do over and over and make them more efficient, or even automatic. They save you from decision fatigue. They make it easier to stick to your discipline, because the process is already set up and ready to go. And over time, the small bits of effort you save by using systems add up to big results. So, if you're listening and thinking, I don't have a team or fancy technology, here's the good news: you can start with tiny forms of leverage, right where you are. Let's say you're just starting to invest. Maybe you create a simple spreadsheet to track your savings goals. That's a system. Or you set up automatic contributions to your retirement account. That's both technology and a system working together. Or maybe you join a book club on personal finance, so you're learning from others and staying motivated. That's leveraging a team. Often, people wait for some perfect moment or for a big opportunity before they try to use leverage. But the reality is, leverage starts with small changes. And as you get used to spotting opportunities, you'll find more and more ways to amplify your effort. Let's get practical for a second. Think about something you want to achieve. Maybe it's increasing your income, growing your investments, or starting a side hustle. Ask yourself, how can I get more results from the same amount of effort? Could you use a tool to save time? Could you automate a tedious task that eats up your energy? Could you reach out to someone with experience to shortcut your learning curve? That's all leverage. And when you stack these forms of leverage on top of your daily discipline, things start to accelerate. Suddenly, you're not just inching forward, you're seeing real momentum. You're getting more done, with less stress. Let's look at a few real-world examples. Imagine someone who wants to save money but struggles to remember each month. They set up an automatic transfer, and now the saving just happens. That's a simple system, and it frees up their mental energy for other goals. Or, say you're building a business on the side. You find a free scheduling tool that handles customer bookings. Now you don't have to juggle texts and emails every day. That's leverage. Or maybe you're trying to learn about investing, and you join an online forum where you can ask questions and see what others are doing. Suddenly, you're benefiting from the experience of 100 people instead of just yourself. That's a form of team leverage. The best part is, as you build a little bit of leverage into your life, you free up more and more of your time. And you can reinvest that time back into creating even more leverage, maybe learning a new skill, or building new relationships, or setting up more systems. It becomes a virtuous cycle. Your effort multiplies, not just adds up. Now, let's talk about one of the most powerful, but often overlooked, types of leverage: ideas. It sounds intangible, but a single idea, used well, can create a lot of value with almost no physical effort. Think about entrepreneurs who invent a product, or artists who create a piece of music. Once the idea exists, it can be copied, shared, or sold over and over again. That's leverage at work. Even in your own life, a creative approach to a problem can save you hours of frustration. Let's say you realize that batching your errands on one day of the week saves you hours. Suddenly, you have more time to focus on your goals. That's the leverage of a smart idea. If you're feeling unsure about where to start, ask yourself, what's one thing I do every week that takes up a lot of time or energy? Then, brainstorm ways you could make it easier, faster, or more effective. Could you use an app to help? Could you ask for help from someone? Could you create a checklist or routine? Start there. Sometimes, leverage is about eliminating bottlenecks that slow you down. Other times, it's about making your strengths go further. Now, a quick word about balance. Leverage is powerful, but it's important to choose the right kind for your situation. Some types of leverage, like loans or debt, can speed things up, but also add risk if not handled carefully. Others, like technology or systems, are usually lower risk and can be implemented in small, manageable steps. The key is to experiment. Try small changes, see what works, and scale up from there. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Start with one area where you feel stuck or overwhelmed. Set up one system. Try one new tool. Reach out to one person who could help. You'll be surprised at how quickly these little bits of leverage add up. Remember, the wealthiest people in the world don't necessarily work the hardest hours. They look for ways to make their time, their money, and their ideas stretch further. They build teams, use technology, and set up systems that run whether they're working or not. You can do the same on your scale. Let's pause and reflect for a minute. Think about your own life. Where are you already using leverage, even in small ways? Are there routines or tools you rely on without really noticing? Could you take one of those and make it even more effective? And where could you add new forms of leverage to amplify your progress? If you're a student, maybe you join a study group so you can learn faster. If you're a parent, maybe you set up routines at home that free up time for the things that matter most. If you're an employee looking to move ahead, maybe you find software that helps you organize your workflow so you can take on bigger challenges. Leverage isn't just for entrepreneurs or investors. It's for anyone who wants to move forward more efficiently. And here's a little secret: the more leverage you create, the more time you get back. That time becomes your most valuable asset. You can use it to rest, to learn, to build, or to spend with the people you care about. It's not about squeezing every drop of productivity out of your day. It's about finding ways to do more with less, so you can shape your life the way you want. Another thing, leverage doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. Sometimes, it's as simple as batching similar tasks together, or setting up a simple reminder on your phone. Or maybe you delegate a household chore to a family member, so you can focus on a big goal. Or you use a note-taking app to capture your ideas, so you never lose track of what matters. These are all small forms of leverage, but over time, they make a huge difference. The trick is to start looking for leverage everywhere. Every time you repeat a task, ask yourself, how could I make this easier next time? Every time you hit a wall, ask, could someone else help me move past this? Little by little, your life starts to feel less overwhelming. You have more energy for the things that move you forward. And your progress starts to speed up. Of course, there will be moments when it feels like adding leverage is just another item on your to-do list. That's normal. The key is to keep it simple. Pick one small area to improve. Celebrate the wins, no matter how tiny. As you get used to this way of thinking, you'll start spotting leverage everywhere. Maybe you find a new app that saves you 5 minutes a day. Maybe you automate a monthly bill payment. Maybe you ask a coworker to show you a better way to do something at work. Over time, these habits snowball. Before you know it, your efforts are multiplied. You're making progress, not just because you're disciplined, but because you're disciplined about using leverage. And the best part? Leverage gets easier the more you use it. As your systems improve, as your network grows, as your skills expand, you unlock bigger and bigger opportunities. That's how ordinary efforts turn into extraordinary results. One last thought, leverage isn't just about money. It's about making your life work better for you. It's about freeing up your time and energy, so you can invest in the things and people that matter most. It's about giving yourself the space to dream a little bigger, and to turn those dreams into reality. So, as you think about your own journey to wealth, however you define it, remember this: leverage is your friend. Look for it in small places. Build it up over time. And watch as your efforts begin to multiply, often in ways you never expected. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens when things get tough, because no formula is perfect. and challenges are part of the journey. But with discipline, time, and leverage on your side, you'll be ready for whatever comes next. So, we've walked through the basics of the wealth formula: discipline, time, leverage. Sounds simple, right? But let's be honest, this is the part where most of us hit a wall. It's not the theory that trips us up. It's real life. You get started with the best intentions, but then something happens. Maybe it's a bad day at work, or a sudden expense, or just that heavy feeling of, am I really cut out for this? If you've ever found yourself doubting whether you can actually build wealth, or even just stick to your own plan, you are not alone. I think every single person who's ever tried to change their financial life has faced those inner battles. Let's talk about it. Why do we get stuck? Why do we hit a rough patch? And how do we actually move through it? Think about any big goal you've set. At the beginning, you're fired up. You make a plan. You write down your goals. Maybe you start tracking your spending or your investments. For a few days, or even weeks, you're cruising along. And then, one morning, you wake up and the excitement is gone. Maybe you feel tired. Maybe you got hit with an unexpected bill, or you notice everyone on social media seems to be way ahead of you. That spark fizzles. You start to wonder, is it worth it? This is totally normal. It's the messy middle, the place between starting and succeeding. It's when discipline feels like a grind, and time feels like your enemy instead of your friend. What's happening here? Most of the time, it's not that the formula stopped working. It's that we start questioning whether we can work the formula. The first obstacle is self-doubt. And honestly, it's a tough one. Self-doubt usually shows up as that little voice in your head, the one that says, people like you don't get rich, or you're too late to the game, or you're not smart enough to figure this out. Sound familiar? It's like emotional static that gets in the way of what you really want. But here's something I want you to remember. Every person you know who has built real wealth, who has changed their life in some meaningful way, has heard those same voices. The difference isn't that they had less doubt. It's that they learned to keep going in spite of it. So how do you actually do that? Let's talk about a few strategies that can help. First, be honest about the fact that setbacks are part of the process, not a sign you're failing. There will be days when you blow your budget, or an investment doesn't pan out, or you just don't have the energy to do one more productive thing. That's okay. Don't let a bad day turn into a bad week, or a bad week into quitting. One thing I've found helpful is reframing mistakes as data. Not as disasters, just information. Every misstep is teaching you something valuable. Instead of beating yourself up, ask, what can I learn from this? This isn't just positive thinking. It's a way to stay curious and keep moving. Another obstacle that pops up a lot is comparison. We all know we shouldn't compare our behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, but it's hard not to. Maybe you see friends posting about their new house, or a coworker shares a big investing win, and you feel like you're falling behind. Here's the thing, everyone's journey is different. We don't all start with the same resources, or opportunities, or even the same setbacks. If you spend all your energy measuring yourself against others, you'll lose sight of your own progress. Try to notice your personal wins, no matter how small. Did you make an extra loan payment? Did you resist a splurge you would have given into last year? Those are victories. They may not look flashy, but they're evidence you're moving in the right direction. Another big challenge is boredom. When you start out, everything feels new and exciting. But eventually, sticking to habits can feel, well, boring. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. In fact, boring is where real growth happens. Day in and day out, doing the small things, saving a percentage, investing regularly, learning a little more each week. It's not glamorous, but over time, it adds up. So if you ever catch yourself thinking, this is tedious, it's not working, remind yourself, consistency is the secret ingredient. It's not about doing big things once in a while, it's about doing small things over and over again. Let's talk about setbacks, those moments when something just goes totally sideways. Maybe you suddenly lose your job, or a big investment tanks, or you're hit with an emergency that drains your savings. It's easy to feel like all your progress has been erased. But setbacks are part of everyone's story. What matters is how you respond to them. Instead of seeing a setback as the end, try treating it as a plot twist. Your story didn't end, it just took an unexpected turn. What skills did this situation force you to develop? What did you learn about yourself? You might not be able to prevent every challenge, but you can always choose how you respond. It helps to take a step back and zoom out. When you look at progress month to month, sometimes it feels like nothing is changing. But look year to year, and you'll often see you've come much further than you realized. If you journal, keep track of where you started. Review your numbers, your feelings, your habits every few months. Even small improvements become huge when you add them up over time. And let's not forget about the emotional side. Building wealth isn't just a technical process, it's an emotional journey, too. Money touches almost every part of our lives. It brings up fears about safety, security, and self-worth. Sometimes, just naming what you're feeling goes a long way. If you're anxious or discouraged, say it out loud or write it down. Giving those feelings a name makes them less overwhelming. If you can, talk to someone you trust about what you're going through. A friend, a mentor, or even a community online. You will probably find that your struggles aren't unique, and that alone can make a huge difference. Now, I want to get practical and share a few strategies to help you stay motivated and resilient when things get tough. First, break your goals down into tiny steps. Instead of thinking, I need to retire early, which is huge and overwhelming, focus on the next small step. Maybe that's opening your first investment account, or setting up automatic savings, or reading one article about money this week. Each step gives you a little win. And those wins build momentum. Next, try putting your habits on autopilot. Whenever you can, automate your savings and investments. If that money leaves your account before you see it, you're less likely to spend it. It also means you don't have to rely on motivation every single day. Motivation comes and goes. But systems, those just keep working in the background. Another helpful habit, check in with your why. Why do you want to build wealth in the first place? Is it financial freedom? peace of mind? Being able to help your family or spend more time on what matters to you. Write it down. Put a note on your fridge or your phone. When you feel like giving up, remind yourself of your deeper reasons. It's not just about the money, it's about the life you want to create. Sometimes, it helps to make your progress visible. Track your net worth, your debt payoff, or your investment growth on a simple chart or app. You can get creative, use a coloring sheet, a spreadsheet, or whatever feels motivating. Watching those numbers move, even slowly, can give you proof that what you're doing is working. And don't forget to celebrate your milestones. If you hit a savings goal, pay off a credit card, or reach a new investing milestone, mark the occasion. It doesn't have to be expensive. Maybe it's a favorite meal, a day out, or just taking a moment to appreciate how far you've come. Celebrating makes the journey a little more rewarding, and it reminds you that effort is worth it. If you ever feel stuck, try changing your environment. Sometimes a simple shift, like working in a different space, listening to inspiring podcasts, or surrounding yourself with like-minded people, can reignite your motivation. We often underestimate how much our environment shapes our habits. If you can, find people, online or offline, who are also working towards similar goals. Share your challenges and wins with each other. Accountability and encouragement go a long way. Remember, resilience isn't about never feeling discouraged. It's about getting back up, again and again, no matter how many times you fall. Resilience is built through practice, not perfection. And if you ever wonder, is it supposed to be this hard? The answer is, sometimes, yes. But it gets easier. Habits that feel impossible at first gradually become part of who you are. When you're building new habits or tackling setbacks, try practicing self-compassion. It's easy to get frustrated or beat yourself up for making mistakes. But being kind to yourself actually makes you more likely to keep going. If a friend came to you and said, "I messed up my budget this month," or "I feel like I'll never get out of debt," what would you say? You'd probably encourage them and remind them how far they've come. Try giving yourself that same grace. Now, there's another challenge that doesn't get talked about enough: fear of success. Sounds strange, but it's real. Sometimes, as you start making progress, you might feel anxious about what comes next. What if building wealth changes your relationships? What if it brings new responsibilities, or the fear of losing what you've gained? These are valid concerns. Acknowledge them. If you notice yourself self-sabotaging or hesitating to take the next step, get curious about what's behind that feeling. Sometimes, talking it through or writing it out can help you move past it. Let's also talk about setbacks that happen because of life itself. You might have to pause your financial goals for a while because of illness, a family emergency, or just needing to focus on something else. Give yourself permission to step back when you need to. Taking a break doesn't mean you're giving up. The important thing is to start again when you can. Remember, building wealth is a long game. There will be seasons of fast progress and seasons that feel slow. What matters most is that you keep showing up. Sometimes your best effort will look different from day to day. That's okay. Progress isn't always linear. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. Whether it's a financial advisor, a mentor, or a supportive friend, having someone in your corner can make a world of difference. And if all else fails, go back to basics. When you feel overwhelmed, focus on what you can control today. What's one small action you can take right now to move forward? Maybe it's transferring $5 to savings, or making a list of your debts, or simply reading one page of a finance book. Small actions, over time, are powerful. Let's circle back to the wealth formula. Discipline times time times leverage. It sounds simple, but living it out requires patience, self-acceptance, and a willingness to start again, over and over. If you find yourself struggling, remember, you're not behind, you haven't failed, and you're not alone. Every step counts. Every setback teaches you something. Every small win is a building block toward your goals. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing the next right thing, day after day. So if you're in a hard season, keep going. If you're celebrating a win, enjoy it. And if you need to start over for the 100th time, that's not weakness, it's strength. Building wealth is a journey. There will be twists and turns. But with discipline, patience, and the courage to keep going, you're building something that lasts. You've got this. So, let's bring it all together. We've walked through why wealth feels complicated for so many people, but the truth is, it's not reserved for the chosen few. Anyone, regardless of their background, can start moving toward financial freedom with the right approach. Let's quickly recap the formula we've discussed. Wealth equals discipline, multiplied by time, multiplied by leverage. That's it. Wealth equals discipline times time times leverage. When you break it down like this, it almost feels too simple, doesn't it? But the best ideas often are. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I get the formula. But how do I actually use it in real life? Where do I start? What do I do differently tomorrow? Let's walk through some concrete steps you can take to put this wealth formula to work in your own journey, starting today. First up, discipline. Remember, discipline isn't about being perfect or superhuman. It's about choosing one tiny habit you can actually stick with. If you're looking to build wealth, what's one thing you can do daily or weekly to move the needle? Maybe that's putting aside a small amount of money every paycheck, even if it's just a few dollars. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes a day reading about personal finance. Or maybe it's packing your lunch instead of eating out and watching how those savings add up. It doesn't have to be flashy. In fact, the simplest habits are often the ones that last. So, take a moment, really, pause and think, what's one small, repeatable action you can commit to this week? Write it down. Tell someone you trust. That's the beginning of discipline. Next, let's talk about time. Time is your silent superpower. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. But it's always working in the background, multiplying every effort you make. Let's say you start saving $5 a day. At first, it feels like barely anything. But over a year, that's over $1, 800. And if you invest that money, or put it into a high-yield savings account, time starts working its magic. That's the power of compounding. The small efforts you make today can snowball into something significant over the years. But here's the catch: you have to be patient. Progress might look slow in the beginning. That's normal. Most people quit before the results become obvious. But if you stay consistent, if you keep showing up, even when it feels like nothing's happening, time becomes your greatest ally. So maybe your actionable step here is to set a reminder for yourself. Check in every few months. Celebrate small wins along the way. Trust the process and trust time. And now, leverage. Leverage is what turns steady progress into exponential growth. It's about finding ways to make your efforts go further without working twice as hard. So, what could leverage look like for you? Maybe it's using technology, automating your savings, investing through an app, or learning a new digital skill. Maybe it's joining forces with others, forming a group to learn together, start a side project, or hold each other accountable. Or maybe it's building systems that make your life easier, batching your work, outsourcing tasks you don't love, or even setting up recurring investments so you don't have to think about them. Leverage is anything that allows you to accomplish more without burning out. If you're not sure where to start, pick one area in your life or work that feels stuck or time-consuming. Ask yourself, is there a tool, a system, or someone I could partner with to make this easier or more effective? That's leverage in action. Let's zoom out for a second. Discipline. Over time. With leverage. That's the framework. Now, here's what I want you to do right after this episode ends. Grab a piece of paper or open up a note on your phone. Draw 3 columns: discipline, time, and leverage. Under discipline, write one small habit you're willing to start. Under time, write down how you'll stay patient and check your progress. Maybe it's a calendar reminder. Maybe it's journaling once a month. Maybe it's finding a visual way to track your growth. And under leverage, jot down one idea for amplifying your efforts. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Something you can act on. Now, if you're feeling a little nervous, or maybe even skeptical, that's completely normal. Change is uncomfortable. Stepping into a new way of thinking about money, or choosing a new habit, can bring up doubts. What if I mess up? What if it's too late for me? What if it doesn't work? Let me tell you, everyone feels that way at first. But the people who build lasting wealth aren't the ones who never stumble. They're the ones who keep going, even when it feels awkward or slow or uncertain. They're the ones who understand that wealth isn't built in a single moment. It's built in the quiet, everyday decisions. The things that seem too small to matter, but over time, make all the difference. And here's the beautiful part: every day, you get a fresh start. Every day is a new chance to put the formula to work. Maybe yesterday you spent more than you meant to, or skipped that new habit you were trying. So what? Pick it up again today. That's discipline. That's how you let time work for you, instead of against you. And that's how you start to see the effects of leverage, because small improvements compound when you don't give up. Remember, there's no finish line here. Wealth isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's about creating a life with more options, less stress, and the freedom to choose what matters most to you. And that journey starts with this formula. I want you to imagine yourself a year from now. If you start today, just one small habit, repeated over time, amplified by the right kind of leverage, where could you be? Even if you don't feel like you're making progress every day, trust that the formula is quietly working in your favor. And the best part? You don't have to do it alone. There's a whole community of people, friends, mentors, online groups, who are on this path too. Don't be afraid to reach out and share what you're learning. Ask questions. Find people who challenge and encourage you. Sometimes, that's the leverage you need, a little support, a little accountability. So, let's get practical. Here's a quick checklist for putting the wealth formula into action. 1. Pick your habit. Start tiny. Make it so easy you can't fail. 2. Set up a way to track your progress. It could be a simple chart, a note on your phone, or a regular check-in with yourself. 3. Look for leverage. Is there a tool, a routine, or a partnership that could make this habit easier or more effective? 4. Stay patient. Remind yourself that results take time. Even when they're invisible, they're happening underneath the surface. And 5. Celebrate along the way. Every small win is proof that you're on the right track. If you ever get discouraged, come back to this formula. Wealth equals discipline, multiplied by time, multiplied by leverage. You don't need to remember dozens of complicated rules. Just focus on these 3 elements. If you're ever feeling stuck, ask yourself, where am I strong right now? Where could I improve? Are you showing up with discipline, but not giving it enough time? Are you consistent, but missing out on leverage? Or maybe you have the ideas, but find it hard to stick with the daily habits. Wherever you are, that's exactly where you're supposed to be. There's no rush. No one's keeping score except you. And if you need to, restart as many times as you want. The most important thing is to keep moving, one step at a time. So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Wealth, in any area of life, isn't about luck or genius. It's about showing up, day after day, and letting time and leverage do their quiet work. You have everything you need to start. And if you're listening to this, you're already ahead of most. You're thinking intentionally. You're seeking out new ideas. That's a powerful form of leverage right there. If you found this conversation helpful, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. We'll keep bringing you practical ideas, real stories, and fresh insights to support you on your path to lasting success. If you know someone who could use a little encouragement, share this episode with them. You never know who might need to hear it. And if you have questions, or want to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out anytime. Your journey is unique, and every step counts. Remember, wealth equals discipline times time times leverage. Start small. Stay consistent. Look for ways to amplify what you do. And above all, be patient with yourself. You're building more than wealth, you're building confidence, options, and a future you can be proud of. Thanks for tuning in. I'm cheering you on. Talk to you next time.